One man hijacked a plane, jumped into a storm with $200,000, and vanished forever. No body, no parachute, no trace. How? This is the only unsolved skyjacking in American history, and it might be the most flawless crime ever committed. In this video, we investigate the full story behind the D.B. Cooper skyjacking, an audacious mid-air heist in 1971 that defied logic, baffled investigators, and ignited a cultural obsession that continues to this day. You'll discover the timeline of the hijacking, dissect the evidence, dive into the suspects, explore the most convincing and outlandish theories, and confront one haunting question. Did Cooper survive, or was this all just smoke and myth? Part 1. The Man Who Fell from the Sky. One man bought a plane ticket, ordered a bourbon and soda, and walked off the face of the earth. No name, no past, no future. Just a stranger in a black suit, a clip-on tie, and a briefcase that allegedly held a bomb. His alias, Dan Cooper. The media, they got it wrong and made it immortal D.B. Cooper. And on a rainy November evening in 1971, he pulled off something that's never been repeated, a skyjacking that ended not with an arrest, not with a crash, but with a man calmly jumping out of a Boeing 727 and vanishing into legend. This isn't just an unsolved crime. It's the only unsolved hijacking in U.S. aviation history. And it reads like fiction, except it's all terrifyingly, tantalizingly real. Tonight we trace the steps of that ghost in the wind. We'll uncover the precise moves he made, the clues he left behind, the baffled agents who chased his shadow, and the fanatics who have spent decades trying to answer a question that refuses to die. Who was D.B. Cooper, and how did he get away? 11/24/71, Thanksgiving Eve. Northwest Orient Flight 305 was a short 30-minute flight from Portland to Seattle. A commuter hop, the kind of route that barely gives you time to finish a drink before it's time to descend. On that day, a man in his mid-40s wearing a business suit and a black raincoat stepped up to the ticket counter. He paid $20 in cash for his ticket, gave his name as Dan Cooper, no luggage, just a briefcase. He took seat 18C toward the rear of the plane. At first, he looked like just another businessman. Calm, quiet, nothing suspicious. But then he handed a folded note to the flight attendant, Florence Schaffner. At first, she didn't read it, used to men giving her their numbers on flights. He leaned closer and said without a flicker of emotion, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The hijacking. Florence opened the note. It was typed reportedly stating, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit beside me." She did. He opened the case slightly, just enough for her to glimpse red cylinders attached by wires to a battery. Was it real? Still debated? But it looked real enough for her to freeze. His demands were simple but chilling. $200,000 in unmarked negotiable $20 bills, 4 parachutes, a fuel truck ready in Seattle, and a rendezvous on the tarmac where the exchange would happen. The message: I'm not here to kill. I'm here to leave. The calm skyjacker. What's most eerie about D.B. Cooper is what he didn't do. He didn't threaten the passengers. He didn't yell. He didn't harm a soul. He ordered another bourbon, left a tip, spoke politely to the crew, even offered to pay for the drinks. This wasn't some erratic madman. This was someone executing a plan with military-grade precision. The plane circled Puget Sound for 2 hours while the authorities scrambled to gather the ransom and parachutes. When they were ready, Flight 305 landed at SeaTac. Cooper allowed 36 passengers to leave. He kept just 4 people on board: the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and a single flight attendant. The money was delivered, the parachutes were loaded, and at 7:40 p.m., with the storm rolling in, the plane lifted off again. The jump into oblivion. Cooper instructed the crew, "Fly low 10,000 feet. Fly slow 100 knots. Keep the rear staircase unlocked. Head south toward Mexico City via Reno." Then he disappeared to the rear of the cabin. At 8:13 p.m., somewhere near the southern Washington wilderness, a light flickered in the cockpit. The crew felt the plane tilt upward just slightly. That was the moment the staircase dropped open, and D.B. Cooper jumped into the storm, into darkness, into 200 mph winds, wearing a business suit with no helmet, no altimeter, and a non-steerable parachute. The crew landed the plane safely in Reno. The FBI stormed in, but the rear stairway was empty. So was the sky. No man, no parachute, no trace. Just a clip-on tie left on his seat, and an empty glass. And then nothing. What followed was one of the most exhaustive manhunts in FBI history. Planes flew search grids over the vast forests of Washington and Oregon, Ground teams scoured the suspected drop zone. Hundreds of suspects were questioned. Leads poured in from across the country. But weeks turned to months. Months to years. And D.B. Cooper had quite literally vanished into thin air. Absolutely. Here's a rewritten version of Part 2, tightened and sharpened for clarity pacing and cinematic storytelling, while maintaining the same structure and investigative depth. This version emphasizes tone tension and viewer engagement, even more ideal for a voiceover-driven YouTube documentary. Part 2. The Trail of Clues and the Deafening Silence. He vanished into a storm with a bag of cash, and left behind only a tie, a legend, and an investigation that would haunt the FBI for decades. The moment Flight 305 touched down in Reno with Cooper gone, and the staircase swinging in the wind, the race was on. America's most elite investigators were now chasing a man with no fingerprints, no confirmed name, and no apparent exit route. They were up against something they weren't used to: a clean crime. Operation Norjack begins. Within hours, the FBI launched a full-scale investigation under the codename Norjack, short for Northwest Hijacking. Agents fanned out across the Pacific Northwest. They interviewed every passenger, combed the plane inch by inch, retraced the entire flight path. But D.B. Cooper had planned better. What they found were traces, whispers of someone brilliant, methodical, and either incredibly prepared or suicidally reckless. The most famous tie in history. One of the few physical items Cooper left behind was a cheap black clip-on tie found draped neatly over the back of his seat. At first it seemed unimportant, but in 2009, nearly 40 years later, modern forensic testing revealed a quiet bombshell. On the tie were microscopic particles of titanium, strontium sulfide, and bismuth, exotic materials commonly used in aerospace engineering and defense manufacturing in the 1960s and 70s. These particles were not household dust. They were industrial markers, breadcrumbs from another life. Could Cooper have worked for Boeing or a military contractor? Did he walk among engineers and rocket scientists by day while planning a perfect crime at night? Whatever the answer it was, clear Cooper wasn't just some desperate man. He was someone who knew systems and how to exploit them. The ransom that disappeared. The FBI had meticulously photographed and recorded every serial number on the $200,000 Cooper received. That money was supposed to be his undoing. Any bill spent, deposited, or exchanged could trigger a match. For years, the serial numbers were distributed far and wide, shared with banks and casinos, published in newspapers, given to store clerks and even Girl Scouts. And yet not a single bill showed up. No flash purchases, no offshore bank dumps, no mysterious inheritances. It was as if Cooper had jumped out of that plane and then burned the money to ashes. Until 9 years later, the Earth coughed something up. The Tenabar discovery. 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River near a spot called Tenabar, just outside Vancouver, Washington. What he found stunned the world. 3 packets of $20 bills still bound in rubber bands. Mutilated by time, but legible. Serial numbers that matched Cooper's ransom money, $5,800 worth. Suddenly the case roared back to life. But instead of providing answers, it only deepened the mystery. Tenabar was miles from Cooper's presumed drop zone. Was it washed there by floodwaters, buried as a decoy, dropped during an escape? And most importantly, where's the rest of the money? No other ransom bills have ever surfaced. The parachutes. A clue in the choices. Here's something many people miss: Cooper didn't just ask for parachutes, he asked for 4. Why? Likely as a psychological ploy to make authorities believe he might take a hostage with him. This would discourage sabotage. But one of the reserve chutes he was given turned out to be a dummy, a training rig non-functional stitched shut. Here's the kicker: Cooper chose that one. Was it a fatal mistake or a deliberate red herring? He also chose an older, non-steerable military parachute over the more modern sport chute available to him. Was he military trained, sticking with what he knew? Or was he bluffing the entire time, guessing his way through with nerves of steel? This is where the case starts to split into 2 worlds. 2 Coopers. One who lived, one who died. Theory 1: Cooper died in the jump. The terrain was brutal. It was pitch black. Temperatures were below freezing. He chose the worst possible chute. By this logic, Cooper's remains are somewhere deep in the Cascade Wilderness, scattered, unmarked, and forgotten. But then there's Theory 2: Cooper survived. He was calm under pressure. He had technical knowledge. He gave detailed flight instructions and requested gear as if he knew what he needed. Maybe he walked out of the woods that night. Maybe the money found at Tenabar was planted as misdirection. Maybe Cooper didn't care about the cash, just the myth. What if the crime wasn't about escaping with money? What if it was about escaping the world? The psychology of a phantom. Cooper's personality calm, as courteous, almost affable, haunted the agents who worked the case. He wasn't greedy. He wasn't cruel. He drank bourbon, wore a suit tipped well. And yet he committed one of the most daring criminal acts of the 20th century. Who plans something like that and then never spends a dime? If he survived, he didn't just get away with it. He vanished so well, it was as if he never existed at all. And if he didn't, then the forest swallowed the truth with him. A question for you. Do you think Cooper was an expert who slipped away like a ghost? Or did he miscalculate, vanish into the trees, and become a mystery by accident? Tell us in the comments, and let's piece this puzzle together. Great. Let's continue with part 3, where the investigation moves from evidence to suspects. This is where speculation takes over and the case transforms into something mythic, strange, and deeply human. Part 3. The suspects, the copycats, and the confessions. In the years that followed, the FBI didn't just chase a man, they chased a ghost wearing 1,000 different faces. By 1972, the manhunt for D.B. Cooper had become something more than a federal investigation. It had become a cultural phenomenon. Everyone wanted to find him. Everyone thought they knew him. And across the country, thousands of tips poured in, each pointing to a brother, an uncle, a coworker, or even a parent. Some of those leads were desperate guesses. Others were bone-chillingly close. And some were just outright strange. Suspect 1, Richard Floyd McCoy. McCoy was a decorated Vietnam veteran, a helicopter pilot, and a convicted skyjacker. In 1972, just months after the Cooper heist, McCoy pulled off a near-identical hijacking. He hijacked a plane, demanded $500,000. Parachuted out mid-flight, was arrested days later. The similarities were uncanny. Military background, knowledge of planes, calm under pressure, even bore a facial resemblance to Cooper's FBI sketch. Some agents became convinced McCoy was Cooper, but the FBI dismissed it. McCoy's fingerprints, handwriting, and MO didn't match. He also had an alibi for Thanksgiving 1971. Even so, believers still insist. Cooper and McCoy were either the same man or trained by the same hand. Suspect 2, Dwayne Weber. In 1995, a woman named Jo Weber contacted the FBI with a startling deathbed confession. Her late husband, Dwayne Weber, had whispered to her, "I'm Dan Cooper." She started digging, and what she found was unsettling. He had a criminal past under multiple aliases. His handwriting matched Cooper's boarding pass notes. He once took her to Tina Bar, where the ransom money was later found. Dwayne Weber also had a scar on his knee, possibly from a parachute landing. Even more compelling, Joe claimed he had nightmares about leaving fingerprints on a plane. The FBI looked into it, but DNA from the tie didn't match. Still, Weber remains one of the strongest public suspects in the court of popular opinion. Was it a confession or a dying man embracing a legend? Suspect 3, Kenneth Christensen. A quiet, soft-spoken man? A former paratrooper? Flight attendant for Northwest Orient Airlines, the very company Cooper hijacked. After Christensen's death in 1994, his brother found a strange collection of clues. Over $200,000 in cash hidden in a safe deposit box. A library of skydiving books. A photo that bore a remarkable resemblance to the FBI sketch. Even stranger, Christensen had bought a house with cash just months after the hijacking. When private investigators looked into him, many became convinced this was their man. But the FBI never seriously pursued him. No physical evidence linked him directly. Suspect 4, Barbara Dayton, the gender theory. In one of the most fascinating and controversial twists in the case, some researchers proposed that Cooper may have been a woman. Specifically, Barbara Dayton, a recreational pilot and parachutist who had undergone gender confirmation surgery shortly before the hijacking. According to friends, she had extensive knowledge of aircraft and skydiving. Was bitter toward the FAA, claiming her pilot's license had been unfairly denied. Once casually admitted to pulling off the Cooper hijacking in disguise, then claimed it was a joke. Her knowledge was deep, her demeanor matched, and she physically resembled the FBI sketch when dressed in masculine clothing. Still no hard proof, no DNA, no money. But it raises a compelling question. Could the greatest unsolved crime in U.S. aviation history have been committed by someone the entire country was trained not to see? The copycat epidemic. In the year following the Cooper heist, over a dozen attempted skyjackings mimicked his methods. Parachutes, ransom, demands for strange mid-flight maneuvers. But none were as clean, none escaped, and none became legends. Most were captured within days. A few were killed. All were compared to the ghost who started it all. The false confessions. Perhaps the strangest phenomenon of all, dozens of people have falsely confessed to being D.B. Cooper. Some on their deathbeds, some in drunken phone calls to the FBI. A few even came forward to the media. Each time investigators asked the same questions. Can you name the flight crew? Can you describe the parachute you used? Where is the money? Every false Cooper stumbled. Because impersonating a legend is one thing. Pulling off the crime of the century is another. D.B. Cooper wasn't just a man. He had become an idea, an outlaw myth people wanted to be. Audience prompt. Which suspect do you think comes closest to the real D.B. Cooper? Do you believe the real Cooper is among these names or still hiding in plain sight? Share your theories below. Let's break it open together. Excellent. Now we move into the heart of the mystery of the theories. This section dives deep into the possible fates of D.B. Cooper, some logical, some bizarre, all unsolved. Part 4. Theories, twists, and the question that refuses to die. He didn't just vanish from the sky. He vanished from logic, from radar, from everything the FBI thought they understood about criminals. As the years wore on and the leads dried up, the D.B. Cooper case stopped being a manhunt and became a riddle. With every clue, new questions emerged. And for every theory that explained part of the puzzle, another contradiction took its place. Now, more than 50 years later, we still ask the same question. Did D.B. Cooper survive the jump? Let's explore the 4 dominant theories, each with its own facts, flaws, and fanatics. Theory 1, he didn't survive. This is the FBI's official stance. Even after decades of investigation, Cooper died in the jump. The case for it? The weather was horrific. 40 mmWs winds, icy rain near total darkness. He was jumping into one of the densest, most unforgiving wilderness regions in North America. His parachute was non-steerable military surplus. He wore loafers and a trench coat, not skydiving gear. And he carried no survival equipment. If Cooper was a civilian with no parachute training, his odds of surviving were almost zero. It was a suicide jump, some agents said. He froze to death before he hit the ground. But here's the problem. No body was ever found. Not then, not now. And in 45 years, not a single hunter, hiker, or camper has stumbled upon a skeleton in the supposed drop zone. Could the forest really have kept him hidden this long? Theory 2, he escaped and disappeared. This is the most romantic theory, and arguably the most haunting. In this version, Cooper was a trained jumper, military or otherwise. He executed a perfect plan, landed safely in the woods, and quietly vanished into a new life. Here's what supports it. He knew the Boeing 727's rear air stair, an obscure detail not public knowledge at the time. He gave precise flight instructions, including altitude and airspeed. He asked for 4 parachutes, possibly as a bluff, suggesting he might take hostages. The money was never spent or circulated, suggesting extreme caution or purpose. And perhaps most importantly, he remained calm, polite, unshaken, like someone who wasn't improvising but executing. Was this the ultimate clean exit? A man who knew the system, used it, and walked away without a ripple. Some believe he lived out his life in South America. Others think he returned to normal society under a new identity. But why leave the money untouched, and why did no accomplice ever come forward? Maybe he had help. Maybe he didn't need help. Maybe for him it was never about the money at all. Theory 3, it was an inside job. One of the darker theories suggests Cooper had insider knowledge, perhaps even help from someone within the airline or government. This theory stems from a few unsettling coincidences. Cooper knew about the Boeing 727's unique design. He knew how to control the air stair during flight, something that even pilots weren't fully trained on. He knew flight paths, fuel consumption, and weather conditions. This level of detail points to aviation experience, possibly even military. But could it also point to someone who worked in the airline industry? Some investigators noted that the airline supplied the parachutes, including the dummy chute. Could Cooper have known this and chosen the right ones on purpose? Was the hijacking more coordinated than we realize? Did someone on the ground help him cover his escape? The FBI never found a smoking gun, but this theory never fully died either. Theory 4. The myth became bigger than the man. And then, there's the most abstract theory, that Cooper was never meant to be caught. That he wasn't just a man, but a message. That the story was the point. This theory focuses less on logistics and more on symbolism. A faceless man, a calm thief, no one harmed, no trace left behind. He became a Robin Hood for the post-Vietnam, post-Watergate generation. An anti-hero in a gray suit. A working-class man who beat the system. Maybe the money didn't matter. Maybe it was about proving a point that control is an illusion. This view doesn't explain how he vanished, but it suggests why. Because once a story is good enough, it doesn't need an ending. It just needs to be told. Audience prompt. Which theory makes the most sense to you? Was Cooper a dead man the moment he jumped? or the only man to truly disappear in the age of satellites? Let us know what you believe because every comment pushes the mystery forward. A chilling twist, the FBI walks away. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially closed the case. Their reasoning: no viable new leads, no usable forensic evidence. But critics say something different. The case didn't go cold. It went inconvenient. Could it be that the FBI quietly suspects someone, but can't prove it? Or are they hiding the uncomfortable truth that D.B. Cooper beat them? Either way, the file is locked, the tie is in evidence, and the sky holds its secrets. Absolutely, let's bring the story home. Part 5. The Legacy of a Ghost. And the final unanswered question. The case may be closed, but the story never ends. In the half-century since D.B. Cooper vanished into the night sky, he has become more than a mystery. He has become a symbol. For some, he's a criminal who outwitted the government. For others, a folk hero, cool, calculated, and bloodless. For investigators, he's the one that got away. And for storytellers, he's the ultimate blank slate. No name, no past, no confirmed ending. Just a moment, a jump, a riddle that still hums in the American subconscious. The cultural afterlife. D.B. Cooper didn't fade, he transformed. His image is on t-shirts, beer bottles, action figures. He's referenced in everything from Loki Marvel to Prison Break Breaking Bad and 30 Rock. In 1981, the town of Ariel, Washington began hosting D.B. Cooper Days, complete with reenactments, parachute contests, and conspiracy bingo. There's even a CooperCon, an annual gathering of researchers, authors, and fans who debate the case like theologians interpreting scripture. He is America's criminal saint, stylish, polite, and just elusive enough to become a mirror for whatever we want him to be. A rebel, a genius, a ghost, or a lie? The one thing that won't die. Despite the FBI closing the case in 2016, citizen investigators haven't stopped. There are private research collectives analyzing river sediment patterns, data scientists creating 3D reconstructions of flight paths, amateur sleuths digging through Cold War military records and missing person databases. And they're not doing it for reward money. They're doing it because they want the story to end, even if it never will. Because the thing that gnaws at us most is that no one knows who D.B. Cooper was. And that maybe he got away with it. The final unanswered question. Let's bring it back to the beginning. A man hijacked a plane, demanded $200, jumped into the storm, and was never seen again. But here's the real enigma. Was D.B. Cooper a real person, flesh and blood, or a carefully constructed ghost? If he survived, why never spend the money? If he died, why was no trace ever found? And if neither, what did we actually witness in 1971? Was this a flawless crime or a story that grew so big it swallowed the truth? The only thing we know for sure is this Cooper left behind a puzzle with just enough pieces to drive us mad. You've now heard the full story, the jump, the evidence, the suspects, the theories, and still, one thing lingers. He jumped, and the world blinked. And in that blink, a myth was born. Now it's your turn. Do you think D.B. Cooper survived? Who was he? Which theory rings true for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll be watching them closely. And if you've heard a theory we didn't cover, bring it. We love fresh clues even half a century late. Let's keep the investigation going. Hit reply to other theories, build on them, challenge them. Let's create the kind of mystery community Cooper himself might have appreciated. Obsessed, relentless, and always just one clue away. Teasing future deep dives. Next week, we explore another man without a name. The Somerton Man. Australia's most chilling, unidentified corpse found with a coded message in his pocket and no record of ever existing. Another ghost, another puzzle. Don't miss it. If you've made it this far, you're one of us, someone who doesn't just like stories. You need answers, so go ahead. Like this video so more sleuths can join the hunt. Subscribe if you want more long-form mysteries, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Maybe the best crime isn't the one you get away with. Maybe it's the one they can never prove happened at all.